Hi everyone, I am Ann Urok and I'm here to talk to you about our final module for this class, our case study. So our first thing on here is to summarize the case. So the Rural Community School of Lightville decided to build a new middle school building due to their increasing enrollment. Once a new building was built, the board wanted to hire a new principal 12 more months before opening up the new school. They hired Susan Potter as the new principal for the middle school. Susan was asked to make staff decisions, organize the school's programs, and collaborate with architects and construction managers. After hiring her staff, Susan created her vision and planning committee. Also would be known as an advisory committee that includes teachers and parents. At the committee's first meeting, Susan presented she did not want to chair the committee because she wanted to share leadership responsibilities through a democratic process. One of the first tasks this committee was to do is to create the school's mission and vision. Susan wants the vision to reflect the values and beliefs of all of its stakeholders. She also wants the vision to go hand in hand with the school's mission. A conflict then arose when Susan suggested that all the members give feedback on a decision about who should create the new school's mission, vision, and philosophy. The committee firmly communicated that they believed Susan should be the one to create these. She disagreed in the fact that she believed that all the committee members should have a say so they could all collaborate and make and implement these documents, but in the end it came down to a vote of the committee. The motion was to be voted on if Susan should draft the vision on her own. The 7 of the members voted to support the motion, which in majority made the motion pass to have Susan draft these. So, report any legal ethical issues. The only type of harm that could arise from the decision made would be the buy-in from the teachers on the staff for the new school's mission and vision statements. There could be pushback from the stakeholders if they do not get an opportunity to have an input in the process, and this could lead to arguments, emotional distress, or even throw a kink in the well-being of the teachers and possibly the students. Next is there is no legal policy that states that the committee members have to have a say in the development of the mission and vision and the philosophy. There are just suggestions on who should influence and develop these documents. The more ethical part would be the process of the situation to make sure that it is best fit for the new school. And lastly, in this situation, there is no breach of contract with no actions of discrimination or harassment. Next is to synthesize. So a new middle school advisory committee comprised of teachers and parents motioned and passed for a new principal to develop the mission statement versus a collaborative group. So here we're going to synthesize the facts. So for the people part, over the past 25 years, Lightville Community School District has almost doubled their enrollment population. Enrollment in increasing about 2% each year, the district decided to open a new middle school for their increasing students. The new middle school building will house 6th through 8th graders. The new design will accommodate up to 450 students. They hired 1 new principal for the middle school. They only had to hire 4 new teachers from outside the district itself. And the principal also created a vision and planning committee comprised of 4 teachers and parents. Our next category is place. So the school district has 2 predominantly rural townships. They have about 60% of their population live on farms. All 3 of the schools will be located on a 65-acre site that is 2 miles from the town of Lightville. And the town itself is located 10 miles from a major city. And our last category here is program. The new middle school will be a public school that will have 6th through 8th graders. This is due to the steady increase in the enrollment each year. The new principal will complete the task of organizing the school's programs, the scope of curriculum, instructional practices. These tasks will determine the creation and implementation of the mission and vision statements that are still needed to be wrote. Okay, our next thing is to review and prioritize our information. So when creating a mission and vision statement for a new school, if it is made independently versus in a collaborative group, there could be little to no commitment from the stakeholders towards the mission and vision. By not having a commitment from all the stakeholders could have an impact on the future success of its students. The advisory committee, the new principal, and the superintendent and future students all have important stake in creating, implementing, and reflecting the new mission and vision statements for the school. I think it needs to be more community leaders besides just the parents on the advisory committee to make sure that all of our factions have a chance to input. Next, in order to learn more about the situation, I think having a Board of Education meeting with an open session where leaders in the advisory committee and future students are encouraged to attend to input their thoughts on what they want to see from the new school. And then lastly, I would also seek input from our community leaders and administrators to ensure all values and beliefs of the community are known as a guidance for creating the vision and mission and philosophy for the school. Next is to identify our options and possible consequences. So I outlined 3 options here and their possible consequences. So option 1 would be, since the principal would be new to the community, she would want to learn more about the community and its beliefs and values and what they want to see out of their schools. This could be going out individually to all the local business leaders, factions, and other principals at the elementary and high school to interview them about what outcome they want for the school to help develop the potential mission and vision statements. Option 2 would be create a second committee that has students from the 6th through 8th grade levels and backgrounds and teachers from the different grade levels from 6 through 8 and their subject areas on this committee where they can input their thoughts about what they could make a quality school to be able to create the mission and vision statements. Lastly, our third option I think is pretty cut and dry and to the point that we could develop a mission and vision statement independently, since that is what the advisory committee voted on, and then ask for feedback once drafted. The possible consequences from these would be that overall this would lead to the original advisory committee getting angry at the fact that you went against their vote. Another consequence would not being able to have all factions or stakeholders represented or allowed to input and ending up not having their backing in future decision making. Alright, so next we're going to evaluate our options using pros and cons. So option 1, our pros would be introducing to our community leaders and factions. We would also involve more voices to be heard. And then we're going to start this connection between the principal, the school, and the community. Option 2, what our pros could be, is involving the representation of more diversity of the student and teacher populations on a committee. And lastly, our option 3, our pro, would be the application of unique ideas from our past experiences from the principal. Over on our con side, option 1 would be a chance of too many voices trying to be inputted that could lead to it being overwhelming to narrow it down to just one concept, and then it could be difficult to schedule our interview times with our community leaders. And then option 2 would be the chance of creating negative relationships with teachers and parents that were on the first committee. And then option 3 is not having any input from stakeholders that would know the community and school the best. So what I think is the best option, I think it is interviewing the community. With being a new principal in a rural community, this would allow an individual to go out to the local business leaders and factions and use the other principals from the elementary and high school to interview them about their beliefs, values, and what outcome they want out of the school to help develop the potential mission and vision statements. I think the community is an important part of the school and its success. Doing this would give the new principal a chance to introduce themselves to the community leaders and start developing that connection between the community and the school. This will allow us to start creating positive relationships with the elementary and high school principals of the school district. By getting these two involved in the new school will allow the coordination of all 3 schools with their mission and vision statements so that they are similar but yet different to suit the different ages of the students to ensure success for all. In this situation, there will be more variety of inputs and perspectives of all the stakeholders of what they could see being part of the mission and vision, the statements of this new school. I think this is a great way to involve the community and stakeholders to have an input in the mission and vision when the advisory committee voted against helping with the original draft of the statements. After creating the first draft of the mission and vision from the information from the interviews, I would go back to the advisory committee on their thoughts about the first draft. In the end, with starting these connections and relationships can help a new principal establish themselves while getting feedback on the drafts for the mission and vision from the advisory committee so that every stakeholder is still being consulted. Finally, the principal and committee will collaborate on the revisions to get the final product for the vision and mission statements. So here we're going to talk about the steps on how we can implement this decision. So step 1 would be have a meeting with the advisory committee to tell them that you are going to interview community leaders to gain information about the community's beliefs, values, and to help them go towards the mission and vision statements. Step 2 would be to tell the committee you plan on drafting the first draft of the mission and vision and then want their collaboration on the final product. Step 3 would be set up the interview times with local businesses and community leaders and the other principals. Step 4 would be interviewing so we can collect the data and information and input. And then step 5 would be comprise a rough draft of the mission and vision statements. Step 6 would be call a meeting for the advisory committee to propose the first draft. And then step 7 would be collaborate with the advisory committee members to create a final product of the mission and vision statements. So here's some questions about our implementing this decision. So what may happen? It could be difficult to schedule interview times with the community leaders. The advisory committee could get upset with the principal going outside the committee for input and information. And also by having the support from the other principals can help the situation too. Who needs to know? The advisory committee would need to know your plan. The community leaders that are being interviewed need to be communicated with. And lastly, the superintendent will need to know what your plan of action is. Next, can you deal with this on your own? Yes, I do believe I'd be able to deal with this individually. I think it'd be a great idea to have a conversation with the superintendent about the plan and their thoughts are on it before calling the initial advisory committee meeting. Warren, during the initial advisory committee meeting, there would need to be an explanation of the new plan and why you're wanting this information from the community. This committee will need to know also that you want their feedback after the first draft has been completed to make the final one. What you might do if your chosen plan doesn't work. If plan B is needed, I would choose option 2. This would allow me to create a second committee comprised of students and teachers to gain the needed information and input, but this could disrupt the relationships between teachers and the advisory committee and the ones selected for the second committee. Lastly, here is my reflection on the assignment. After completing this assignment, it gave me a real-life scenario to work through as a future leader. It taught me how to think about the options and what their possible outcomes and consequences could be in any type of situation. Also, it taught me the process of listing out every step for the best plan possible for an option chosen for a situation and to make sure to involve all its stakeholders. This specific situation reiterated the importance, impact, and reflection of the community, the mission, and the vision statements have on a school. With being part of a rural school district and community, I related to the importance of the community as which is a scenario expressed. My school currently has a council consisted of our principals, teachers, parents, and community leaders. I think this is a great committee opportunity to help build more of a connection between the school and the community. As a future leader, I would want to create something of the same nature. This committee could help create and revise the mission and vision statements for the school while assisting towards the success of our students, striving for the goal of the mission and vision. The committee will also be a great asset for the input for future decisions. In the end, throughout this entire course, it helped me learn how to process and plan as a future leader and putting it into action in this real life situation. As a future leader, I can and plan to use this knowledge, skills, and processes in my future school. I think overall, this has definitely gave me a lot more knowledge about being a future leader and built on some of my current knowledge that I already had, and it makes me excited to see what the future has. Thank you.